Hey everyone, and welcome to my next video showing all of my Canadian and American Beatles albums. Now I'm afraid to say, in this part of the collection, so kind of my later 60s American albums, I've got some serious holes in the collection, and the first of those holes is that I don't actually have an American Sgt. Pepper, so unfortunately I'm going to have to skip straight to Magical Mystery Tour. So the Magical Mystery Tour was released as an LP in America and Canada, whereas it was just an EP in the UK. So anyway, here's the album. Now this was originally released on the Rainbow Capital colour band label. However, I don't actually have any colour band copies, so I'm going to have to go to my 69 copy. So I'll show you the vinyl first. So there's the green Target label. And side 2. There we go. Now this album was originally released in both mono and stereo, but of course my copies are all stereo, not being on the colour band label. And here's the gatefold in the sleeve, with the booklet inside. It's basically just a bigger version of what you get with the EP in the UK. So it just gives you lots of pictures of the film. And here at the very beginning is the track listing. And some credits there. Next up, I've got another green Target label copy, however this is a Canadian version. Now interestingly, on the Canadian version of the cover there's a Capital logo on the top right corner, which isn't there on the US equivalent, so a little strange. And of course it's got on the back of the cover, made in Canada there. And here's the Canadian Target label, made in Canada. It's very similar to the US one, with obviously only one or two subtle differences. And here is side 2. And now I've got a couple of Apple copies to show, which are pretty much the same. There's only one or two subtle differences. But anyway, so here's my first USA Apple copy. And here's this Apple label. I know there are many different variations on the Apple label for this pressing. Like before this, I think there was one where it had perimeter text across the bottom of one of the sides with a Capital logo in. But this is the version which just has manufactured by Apple on the bottom of side 1, if you look there. Manufactured by Apple Records. So I think that puts this pressing at around 1971, but I might not be right on that. And here's another Apple pressing, which is very, very, very similar. And as you can see, the label looks exactly the same. However, there is one extremely slight difference, and you can find that in the matrix number. If you look at the top of the matrix there, it says Mastered by Capital. You can just about say that there, Mastered by Capital. And that wasn't on the previous copy that I've just shown you. And here is my one and only American White Album. Very nice though. And this was kindly sent to me by a friend of mine, Quinn Spears. So thank you very much for that, Quinn. So as you can see, it's in very nice condition. And here's the number. I believe that's 2,408,707. And obviously the American ones go up a lot higher than the UK issues do. And of course this is in stereo because the White Album never got a mono release in America, which is a shame, because it's really good in mono as well. And here's the nice dark Apple label. I believe this is the second pressing though, because if you look at track 6, the continuing story of Bungalow Bill, I believe on the very first issues it was just shortened to Bungalow Bill, but on every subsequent issue it was put right, so it reads The Continuing Story of Bungalow Bill, which this one does. And side 2. And here's sides 3 and 4 as well, so side 3 and side 4. And I am very pleased to say that this copy of the album is complete with all the inserts. So you get the poster, of course, this is the big fold out poster. And you also get the 4 photographs. So there's John and Paul, Ringo and George. Now the American versions of the photos aren't quite the same as the UK ones. I think it's just because they don't feel quite as heavy and maybe a little less glossy. And here's my one and only American copy of Yellow Submarine. Now the cover is very different to the UK one because on the American version it's got selections by the Beatles plus original film music in the corner. And I actually prefer the back of this cover to the back of the UK cover just because it's a lot more colourful, because you get all the characters from the film down there just to brighten things up a bit. Stereo, of course. This was only released in stereo. And this is on the Apple label, of course, with a groove in the label. And this is the version with the perimeter text that has the capital logo in it, just there. So that's nice. And I could be wrong in saying that that's a first person. I'm not 100% sure. So if you do know, I'd be very grateful if you could let me know. Alright, and here's my American copy of Abbey Road. And again, I think this is the first pressing because it doesn't have Her Majesty on side 2. Just finishes with track 10, the end. Okay, now on to the album known as Hey Jude, or The Beatles again. So I've got a few copies of this. So I think this album basically just compiled all the Beatles songs that hadn't yet been featured on an American album. I think that's about right. So you got some stuff from the from the mid '60s, and some stuff that's very recent. So like Hey Jude and Revolution. So quite an interesting album, really. So here's my first copy. I think this is my earliest version because it's actually got the Beatles again on the label, not Hey Jude, as future copies will have. And also, if you look at the catalogue number, which you'll be able to see better on side 2, the catalogue number SO-385, that will change after this copy here as well. So that's two things to think about. And there's the label. Something else to note about this copy actually is that all the songs are below the spindle hole, okay? All below the spindle hole. Alright, here's my second copy of this album. Okay, so here's my second copy. Now the first thing to note is that the first song, Can't Buy Me Love, is now above the spindle hole, which wasn't the case on the previous issue. And most importantly of all, the album title is now changed to Hey Jude rather than The Beatles Again. And if you look at the catalogue number, it's now changed to SW-385 rather than SO-385. So there's a few differences there. And here is my third and final copy. And this is on the orange Capitol label. Alright, so here's my copy of Let It Be. Now, unlike the UK version, this has a nice gatefold sleeve, so that's nice and interesting. And it has the Red Apple label on the back, like the UK first pressings. Now, the American first pressings have a Red Apple label, which the UK ones don't, but I do really like the Red Apple label. I think it was something to do with United Artists wanting to make a film about Let It Be, but then it got cancelled or something like that. I'm sure you'll know better than me, but I think it was something along those lines. And anyway, here's side 2 as well. Now, I believe this is an early copy because on side 1, if you look at Maggie May, the last track, the credits for it are PD, which I believe stand for Public Domain, rather than, I think it's like Arrangement Lennon McCartney Harrison Starr or something that comes after it, instead of just PD on a later issue. And here is a counterfeit copy of Let It Be. And here's the label. It's got a groove in for some reason. And just the whole thing doesn't look as nice as the proper version. I mean, the label looks faded, the cover's darker, and I've got to say the sound quality is appalling. And now to finish off, I've just got a couple of miscellaneous albums to get through, so we'll do those next. So I've got the Beatles Rock and Roll Music Volume 1. Now this was released in the UK as well, however it's slightly different just because of the title, which is in yellow and then purple, whereas I think it's got like red lettering in the UK version for the title. And the back's actually much nicer than the UK version just because they spruced it up a bit with some yellow and white and a nice purple diamond in the middle. And this is on a really nice dark green capital label, which I've never really seen before on a Beatles album. And now we have the Beatles Rarities, and this is the US edition, which is completely different to the UK one. It's got a different cover for a start off, but also the track listing. And this is on a rainbow capital label as well. I think this was during the time where they revived it briefly. And here's side 2 as well. So, rather than the UK version, which is basically just a compilation of quite rare tracks, this is like rare versions of tracks. So you get like the German She Loves You, and you get versions of And I Love Her with like the da 6 times at the end rather than 4, and you even get the Sgt. Pepper in a Groove, which if you've heard it you'll know what I mean. That little extra bit you get as the record's going through the run out groove. B-side to Let It Be, Across the Universe. I believe that's the charity version John Lennon did on the album Across the Universe, and just bits and pieces like that. But it's a really, really good album. I really like this. And here's the nice inner sleeve you get with it, and the other side, and it's a gatefold sleeve as well, which is really cool. Got the butcher cover there. And my last American album is, weirdly, a copy of Beatles for Sale in mono. Now I believe this is from around the early 90s. Here's the back. It's got the Capitol logo down there, along with the Apple on the Parlophone label. Printed in USA. And this is on the purple Capitol label. Alright, so that's the end of my Canadian and USA albums. I hope you enjoyed seeing all of those. And so now I'll be showing albums from other countries. I've done all the UK and the US ones, so it'll be some from other foreign countries now. So I'll be doing those starting next week. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.